Hi, you're back. I'm Marc, an art teacher, a professional artist, and today I'm going to tell you about a rule that very few people know about, a rule that's going to change how you approach learning art, or most other things for that matter. It's a rule that I personally followed unknowingly when I was younger, and what allowed me to start working as a game developer at 19, so fairly young, and then join Blizzard Entertainment by the time I was 22, where I was the youngest artist at the company at the time. Now, I'm not saying this to brag, a lot of you guys know this already if you're a subscriber to the channel. I'm saying this just to highlight how powerful this rule is. I'm only here to help. The best part is that it applies to so much more than just art. Now, I know it might sound like clickbait a little bit, but you guys know me. I don't do clickbait video. Just keep watching and you'll see. What I'm referring to here is called the 80-20 rule, or also called the Pareto principle. Want to know what this is all about? Quickly, let's get this class started. Alright, as artists, or as anyone learning a new skill for that matter, how we learn makes all the difference when it comes to how fast we can learn. You can study and practice poorly and achieve slow, poor results, or you can practice well and achieve great results much faster. It's not just about how much you practice, it's also about how well you practice. Quality over quantity applies when it comes to studying too. Today I'll explain how the 80-20 rule can help you achieve great results, but with very little work and time invested relative to most other people, and how you can turn way up the quality of your studies. There aren't any real ways around practicing a lot to get better at something, but this rule is as close to a cheat as it'll ever get. And the fact that it's not familiar to most people will give you a huge advantage if you apply it. An advantage that I've used and one you'll want to have in a crowded art industry. If you already know what the 80-20 rule is and you're already rolling your eyes, well, I'm going to show you 2 ways to go about learning with that rule, and 2 ways that have, I believe, resulted in the success that I've had in my career. If anything, it might help define something you've already felt before, but maybe never wondered about beyond that. Anyways, first, let's define this rule and see how its effects are so prevalent in everyday life. Then we'll see how this applies to art, and I'll give you concrete ways to take advantage of it as an artist to get that edge. So then, what is the 80-20 rule? Very simply put, it's the rule that says that for many outcomes in life, roughly 20% of the effort is responsible for 80% of the results. And so if you want to get that last 20% of those results, you'll need to spend 80% of your energy. Now, this is a little abstract, but in real life, this often applies. For example, around the world, roughly 20% of people contribute 80% of the taxes. There are fewer rich people, but they contribute more. For another example, I could use CubeBrush, where about 20% of the sellers will contribute 80% of all sales. Or how we use 20% of what we know as artists to draw or paint 80% of the art that we create, right? It's pretty rare to see artists do vastly different things from one piece to the next. Usually, you'll find clear similarities. At this point in my career, I know how to draw a ton of stuff, have a lot of experience, but most of the time, I will still only use about 20% of my visual library. 20% of what I know to draw the vast majority of what I enjoy drawing. This also means that you could take 20% of the time it took me to get to where I am today and achieve 80% of the results that I'm able to produce. In theory, at least. You see where this is going? So of course, we want to focus on that 20%. But yeah, we want to focus and maximize what matters. This is cool in theory. Work less for more results. Hell yeah, sign me up. Now, how do you apply this when it comes to studying art? How do you improve faster? Well, today I'll present 2 different ways. So let's start with the first one. And the first thing to keep in mind here would be to have a clear goal. If you do, there's a lot of stuff that we can filter out of your studies to really focus on what we need and what we need only. I'll take my own art as an example. I think it's no secret that I prefer drawing characters over pretty much anything else. And that was also the case when I was younger. And one of the things that I had going for me then was laziness. Well, actually, I'm still lazy, but laziness, in my case, manifested in how little I wanted to study art. I wanted the results. I loved art, but I refused to study the traditional way. I wasn't interested in any studies just for the sake of studying something. Whatever I studied had to have a direct and immediate application to my art. And I'll call this way of practicing the explorer's path. Basically, you jump into whatever you want to draw or paint blindly and try to figure out how to complete the task as you go. Of course, you'll run into different walls, different struggles, but you're only ever focused on the problem directly in front of you. Like I said, this works if you have a clear goal, since that thing you'll need to learn is what you'll be drawing a lot of in the future. In my case, I enjoyed drawing characters with a heavy focus on design. So that's all I did. I had to figure out how to do it first, the first time around. I had a lot of walls I needed to get over. But once I did figure it out and learned the few skills needed to draw simple characters in simple poses with cool armor, cool designs, then all I had to do is move on to the next character, and lo and behold, the same skills I focused on the first time around were still very relevant this time again. So the process went a lot faster. All my future characters used about 80% of the same knowledge each time. I would reuse similar proportions, similar anatomy, similar armor, similar faces too, yet all slightly different. And, well, this allowed me to be very prolific with a somewhat limited knowledge in my younger years. I really polished up my recipe, and so much so that I got hired as a professional very young. Don't ask me to draw environments then, though. I was only focused on character design, so that's all I knew. But in my case, I knew that very well, and the goal justified the means. So, the explorer's path. That's what I started with. The other way of practicing, I'll call the dealer's path. And by the way, both names here are completely made up. It just sounded kind of cool, and it matches the definition. Don't read into it any further than that. Now, the dealer's path, the second method. This works great if you don't have as clear of a goal. If you don't want to be as hyper-focused as I was with characters, for example. Basically, you'll want to only study things that you'll be able to apply in multiple scenarios. If you can learn one thing and apply it to 2 drawings, that's a good deal. You basically cut your practice in half, since, well, you won't have to learn the same thing twice. Now, want to learn how to draw hair? No, that's a little too specific. Instead, learn how to draw fabric and folds. Not any kind of folds though. Does knowing how to draw a pile of fabric on the ground really help you? You probably won't draw that too often. I'd argue learning to draw generic garments like pants, capes, and shirts should allow you to draw pretty much any outfit by mix and matching the characteristics from those 3. Once again, narrowing down the focus quite a bit. And that should be a much more useful skill when drawing an average character. The same logic applies for hair here, so you would be able to draw hair fairly easily with that same knowledge you already have, having learned how to draw folds. No need to focus on hair specifically. And for anything that you learn, ask yourself if it's a good deal, if you'll be able to reuse the knowledge a lot, or not very often. Focus on knowledge that you'll be able to reuse the most often. With my students, I always hammer down on the importance of practicing fundamentals like gesture drawing and anatomy if you like drawing characters. If we were talking about environments, for example, well, then you might want to focus on different things like perspective, composition. In any case, back to character drawings, practicing those 2 skills, gesture drawing and anatomy, will also allow you to draw monsters, creatures, and animals too. Since we share about 85% of our anatomy with most animals, it'll also improve how well you can shade without even practicing shading, simply thanks to the fact that you're getting better at imagining volumes and space in your head by practicing drawing anatomy. You're also getting better at lighting without realizing it for the same reason. If you think of it in terms of workout, it's like choosing compound exercises that target multiple muscles at once, rather than isolate a single muscle. It's different from the explorer's path. Of course, it has similarities, but yeah, it works just as well. And that's what I do nowadays. Progress comes a little slower with the dealer's path, but in exchange, you build skills that will make you a better artist overall, not as specialized. I chose to specialize early on in my career to get a job as soon as possible and diversify later. Worked out pretty well. If you think back to elementary school years, what do you remember from it? How to count, how to write, but not much else, I would guess. At least I don't. Most of it, I'm sure close to 80% is just knowledge that we don't usually use, so it gets forgotten. 80% of elementary school was a waste of time when it comes to learning stuff, at least. When it comes to my art program, just like with all the videos here on YouTube, I always try to focus on that 20% of content that will provide you guys with the most benefits. I would guess that's the reason why the channel is doing pretty good, and also why I'm able to make a good living just teaching art, right? Short, easy to digest content, but that has long-lasting and broad implications. I try applying the 80-20 rule to most of what I do in life and in my art, of course, and time again, it proves to be a good decision. I highly recommend it. So next time you sit down to learn art, ask yourself if what you're working on is helping you solve an immediate problem with a painting or drawing, or if it'll have at least multiple uses in the future. If the answer is no or not really, then you're probably not optimizing your time properly and diminishing the quality of your studies. Don't be a loser. If you do, you'll start improving a lot faster while spending the exact same amount of time doing art, or maybe less. Maybe you're already doing this in other areas of your life without realizing it. Maybe you only watch 20% of YouTube videos and skip most of the rest, yet are able to extract most of the information. Sounds familiar? Maybe. But yeah, that's about it. If you have other ways to improve productivity and speed up your learning, share them in the comments. I love this stuff. Our time on this planet is limited, so any way you can save time is the same as extending your life, living more with the same amount of time others get. YOLO.